10 is a beautiful number. 10 is always a beautiful number. 10 is a beautiful number. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And welcome to the garden. Welcome to Garden Conversations with Rose as we continue to engage you in 60 plus 1, her story, her lesson, and of course, a message. So, one of the things that always seemed to bother me, and something I didn't quite understand as a child, was the fact that very often my mom would be hospitalized. There was no explanation given to us as children, but for some reason, her hospitalization came quite a few times. And I remember us having to visit her, sitting on her bed, holding her hands, just looking and wondering as a child what was really going on, but never quite sure as to what it is that had brought her to this space. And she looked well as a child, can recall, so I didn't understand what was happening. She was happy to see us, and yet there was something that didn't sit well. What was rather interesting as well was that whenever mommy was hospitalized, daddy was a little extra nice and was even a good parent in many instances. Of course, one of the things I recall him doing every time mom was hospitalized was ensuring that our portions at mealtime were a little larger than what we were accustomed to. And that made us feel really happy. But of course, it didn't stop us from wondering why it is that mommy was not around. So that was something else. Never got to ask, never got to ask either of them why that was so. But of course, despite all of that, I have fond memories of being in church. So, of course, we were in church for almost every day of the week. There was Bible club on a Monday afternoon once we got back from school, where we engaged in memory verses, Bible stories, singing of songs and choruses, exhortations, encouragement. And that was always fun. There was choir practice every Saturday. There was youth meetings every Friday night, which I thoroughly enjoyed. We had Bible spelling, we had Bible games, we had the soul drills, we had lots of skits where the young people did simulations, um, giving examples of things that are biblical as a way of getting us together. And that was always fun. And of course, there was always the Tuesday night prayer meetings, the Thursday night Bible study, and obviously Sunday morning, Sunday school, and Sunday evening service. I also recall those many open air services that we had, mainly on moonlit nights in the surrounding villages and hamlets. And we walked and we thought it was a good thing. So I remember walking along the Bell Hall stretch going to Tatan, and the aroma and smell of the lemongrass stayed with me then. But we went to those prayer meetings sometimes at Gillette, and very often I sang at those prayer meetings as well. Those things kept me grounded. So church was really, really a safe space. It was a good place to be. And of course, we had Vacation Bible School and summer camps. At the summer camps, we got to meet and interact with a large number of young people from all of the sister churches. We enjoyed our camp sessions, going to the beach, having skits, having singing competitions, having game night, and of course, at the end of it all, having a big bonfire. It was a time of community and encouragement, solid biblical precepts, waking up in the mornings, having to ensure that your dorms are clean so that at competition time your dorm can win. All in all, those were fun times. So even when as I grew older, and I would have stepped away a bit from the things that I remembered, my faith did not waver, and my prayers were still going on. And God has been a good God. God has been really good to me throughout all of my life. I was also very privileged to take my first trip to first world country of England, where, as a child, when you hear of England, you're thinking about London Bridge, you're thinking about the River Thames, you're thinking about Puss in Boots when he went to meet the Queen, you're thinking of the palace, you're thinking about so many things. And it was actually something else when you got there to actually visualize and witness those huge parks with the beautiful scenery. So my first trip to England was quite a pleasant one. Getting to travel on the train, having to go about my business, seeing large numbers of Caucasians that were not something that we saw in our land, and simply enjoying another country, having to experience snow as well. That was something else. So those were good times. And when I think about it, I'm thinking now of travel therapy because indeed that trip was a good one. Of course, as an adult, I also relish and appreciate the fact that I was able to own my own home, get away from rent, and even if my income was quite small, and I had to take a huge chunk of it to go toward the lending agency. I think I had much preferred that because over time my savings would have increased, and at the end of it all, the place where I was living in belonged to me. I didn't have to continuously be paying someone else. And so, what are the lessons that I have learned and the message I want to leave with you as a result of that? So, as it relates to my mom being hospitalized, one of the lessons that I learned was that parents can become vulnerable and can become ill and can be in a state of helplessness where they aren't able to care for us. And so, out of that, I want to say and want to leave a message to teach our children that empathy is something that they need to graft and have and hold and continue to practice, particularly when a mother or a father is not well. They have to learn to be empathetic and they have to learn to appreciate that there are times when mommy can't always be with us. But on the other hand, as well, I want to say that we as adults have to learn to provide the support and provide a cushion for our child or children whenever one of the parents falls ill. Because, of course, children do not always understand. Like I said, I did always understand what was going on, but I believe the support was there. For some reason, my father got extra kind. And of course, I had older siblings who provided a source of support for us while mommy was hospitalized. As a matter of fact, when I was 10 years old, my third eldest brother got married, and again, mommy was hospitalized. She wasn't around, but I had the support of all the siblings and the church family. So we were kept in a good space because mom was not able to take care of us. So whenever a parent is ill, I just want to say, always ensure that there is a strong source of support for the child to cushion the child so that he or she does not feel as if they're helpless, uncomfortable, and all alone because one of the parent is unwell. That's very important. The other thing I want to say and reiterate is that Children need to have a strong spiritual base. I talked about how enjoyable my time at church was as a child, and it really saddens me as an educator that many of our young people these days, our children, do not have a spiritual base. Lots of them do not go to church whatsoever. They can't pray. They do not appreciate the songs and the choruses that are sung to them. They have no sense of reverence when it comes to prayers and a general assembly where we talk about God. It's like it's too much for them. They don't want to hear anything about that. They get very irritated when and annoyed when we are trying to bring them into that semblance of spirituality. And it really saddens me and burdens me a lot that our base, spiritual base, has gone out the door, has been thrown away with the in the bathtub, really. We threw it all away. We have gone the other end. And so many times I see the repercussions that this has. So when our young people they are troubled, they have nowhere to turn. There is no verse that holds a promise for them when they are burdened, when they are disturbed, when they are troubled. So I want to reiterate and encourage and leave a message that we need to ensure that our young people have a spiritual base. Even if you, as the parent, may not necessarily be going to church, you ought to ensure that your child has some sort of strong spiritual base that will help them tremendously as they grow older. As it relates to travel, I want to encourage us as adults to think seriously about travel therapy, taking a break and going to somewhere else so that you can see another side. I talked 2 days ago about my trip to Barbados when I was 8 years old and how it provided me with a new perspective. I want to say that it is good to see another side, another country. It would be good. And if you aren't able to go overseas, at least take a trip to another part of the island, see something else. Just today, myself and my other colleagues, principals, and the deputies, we had that trip to several historical parts of the country and natural sites of the country where we just simply took a break. We took in all of what was there. Many of us haven't been to those sites in several years. And it was really a good thing to take some time away. Time away is very important to help you rejuvenate as it relates to ensuring that we have a home base. I know things can be difficult, and some of us, our incomes do not allow for us to own. But I want us to think about striving toward that, saving toward that, and wherever possible, tapping into the means that will provide us with our own. Nothing beats paying that money to a bank, and at the end of the day, the home belongs to you, as opposed to constantly pouring into a landowner as a tenant. You're giving years and years and years of paying the rent, and the other person, and there's nothing wrong with persons who try to make their means that way, they will always be tenants. But ultimately, one has to endeavor to own his own home. Make the bold steps, make the efforts, be proactive and purposed in spite of the challenges. I said my income was very low, but I still endeavored and pulled through so that I was able to do that. It's June the 4th. My day is coming. 6 days, 6 more days, 6 more days to 60 plus one. A story, her lesson, and her message. Be blessed. See you some other time.